Thanks for watching Wild with Wilder. We're going to do a spoiler talk episode. I recently watched Justice Society of America World War II, which is available on HBO. I've been kind of going through some of the DC superhero cartoon shows for a lot of reasons, which I'll get right into. And I thought, because this one really held my attention, came out with some good stuff, it'd be nice to just kind of express my thoughts behind it, why DC continues to kill the animation game, and why they've been doing it better than Marvel for a long time. So let's just jump right into it. Full spoiler talk. This is your warning if you don't want to be spoiled. Spoilers for Justice Society of America World War II. And let's 100% hop right in. Okay, so I was feeling very kind of like enthusiastic about the DC like lexicon. I watched Injustice the other day, and last night I was like, well, I want to see if I can get a little bit more from this particular like fan group. I've always been a big fan of the DC cartoons in particular. They kind of raised the bar in the 90s with Batman the Animated Series, with Superman, and eventually with Justice League that came out in the early 2000s, followed by Justice League Unlimited, which is a fantastic show, especially for comic book fans. So this is kind of the trailer for Justice Society of America, which takes place in World War II. And as you can see, you have your modern day Flash, and he has been hit with the Flash Force, or he went too far into the Speed Force, and now he ends up back in time, meeting some of the original superheroes, the Justice Society of America. Now, I had animation on those is a ton of fun. Now they're available on HBO Max kind of right now, and that's one of those animated programs that is really kind of well done. I was pleasantly surprised for a lot of reasons. Just to say that it really felt like DC, to kind of start with that. DC Animated Series has a very specific perspective when it comes to superhero stuff. They really like to focus on letting the characters kind of live in their world, operate in the ways that they do. And when they let them do that, then you get a much more solid idea of who the character is, what they potentially mean, and things like that. I have a very strong connection to the animated Batman, the animated Superman, all the Justice League figures, even characters like The Question, just because of the show. And that kind of tailors into, oh, I wonder what their comic books are going to be like. And that'll take you to the movies, so forth and so on. This one in particular, I'm a fan of because I've kind of always been a fan of just the Justice Society of America in particular. I read the Justice Society series that came out in 2000 through 2007. I read them as trade paperbacks when I was a little bit younger, but not on the young side anymore. So I was looking for some comic books that almost looked at the world a little bit differently. And the guys at the shop, they told me about, hey, do you know Justice Society of America? It's got some of the best writing that exists. So if you think about how the X-Men are in regards to, oh, this is what's happening now, current young characters, teenagers kind of feeling like outcasts fitting in. These are like grown people with real life problems that are just kind of looking to also still looking to belong. and actually having a place to belong. That's more like a home as opposed to the Justice League where everyone's like on their toes because they're trying to be at their height, trying to be the best that they can absolutely be. So yeah, and just kind of seeing the way that they're drawn. Some of my favorite characters came from these books. So obviously there's Dr. Manhattan, which he's featured right here on the front. The original Green Lantern, the original Flash. There we go. Got some zoom with it. You have the previous Hourman, who is an android. You have Stargirl, Hot Girl, and Black Cat. A few others whose name I don't remember. Canary. I can't remember the guy who has geo powers, like he's like a geomancer or something like that. But it also introduced me to Mr. Terrific. You see him kind of like right above me. Now, this iteration of Mr. Terrific is amazing. Very well written, very mature. He's very much a very driven, hyper-specific, incredible type of guy. And seeing what they did to him in the CW and the Arrowverse is just a travesty, because they made him soft. They made him kind of weak. They gave him this ability to like braid his hair in like half a second, as opposed to like, instead of just making a good character, they just made him like not the same character at all. And I think that in that world, they were focused on, I don't know, like making the characters less because it's like not quite as big of a story. But I have a lot of fond memories of reading these. Dr. Midnight on the left, top left, he's a doctor who has like a bit of eye injury, so he can only see certain spectral aspects of images, but then that gives him special powers to be able to do certain things, and the list goes on and on. And Hawkman, like, I had no idea who Hawkman was until I read JSA, but there's this whole history behind the character, ancient Egyptians with Hawk Girl, some sort of romance that kind of goes on as they get reincarnated again and again. Just very interesting types of powers. I think one of the reasons that I liked it is that they focused on the family aspect, which I always like, of people kind of finding this location and we're trying to do good by the world, in regards to the world, which I always like. I feel like that gives it a little bit of like a solidarity with what I was thinking at the time. I also think the art and the stories were great adventures. And that's what DC does so well, is that in the animated series is the characters' lives are they're so tense. They're always on. The Flash can't even like have a picnic with Iris without some stuff happening. Now, I get it with Superman. He hears everything, but some of the other characters, they're just like, let me just go check because something's always happening. I love the stories that they told too. So I have a lot of history. Like I owned all these trade paperbacks back in the day. I sold most of them. You know, it's just heavy having all these TPBs. I may restock just because I like these stories. But I've read them again and again and again, and they just were so comic booky. You see Shazam right there. We know the story of Shazam thanks to the movies. I hope that brought people to read some of these JSAs, and Jeff Johns is awesome. So it really gave us some of my favorite characters too, like Black Adam. Black Adam, you know, kind of in that Shazam world, and I'm hoping that there's some sort of crossover, even though they made Shazam a little bit more on the funny side, jokey side. We're going to keep making like comedy out of it. Black Adam was always just kind of like a little bit serious. So not quite the best framing, but him and Black Cat's an interesting character too. He's basically a derivative of Batman in that he has no powers except 9 lives. So he can come back to life like 9 more times. I think he's in this series, he's died like 3 or 4 times, but he's a boxer who's a fantastic athlete, and he goes out and he fights crime. And in the olden days, he gets into scuffles, and like he's like now in this story a much older man, but he's still using some of the kind of old vernacular. He's like, "Oh, give me an egg cream," but like he doesn't look super old or anything. It's just really cool. I like too just the fact that in the JSA it feels more historical. No one's a throwaway. They bring their baggage with them, so there's a big respect to history. It almost feels like a very classic respect your elders type of book, where superheroes need some of that. It can't all just be about teen angst and rebelling against authority. Some of it has to be learning from the wise and those who have come before us. Black Adam, I think, is a great character because he is a villain turned anti-hero that kind of teeters the line, sometimes hanging with the villains. In the original, his first appearance, it was like a criminal whom had been reincarnated from Black Adam, whom was one of the Egyptian gods from back in the day, just like Hawkman and Hawk. It's on and on. But there's a longevity, there's a weight to the character, and that's part of the reason why I'm just so excited for The Rock playing Black Adam. Because A, he's the perfect silhouette, perfect look, perfect style, perfect presence for this type of character. And if they write him well, this could be his big input into the superhero space, because we already have a Shazam that we like. Even if he is a little bit on the sillier side, I think The Rock as Black Adam would really get things to kind of solidify if they do it right. I almost wonder too, are they going to do some weird period piece where he starts back in ancient Egypt and it actually works? Because that would be fantastic. I'm really hyped for those. So you guys have heard a little bit of my history with the JSA and these characters. I wanted to talk about, this is one of the crossovers where they run into some of the heroes that we know. So Superman, Wonder Woman. Look at how much older they drew the Flash, Jay Garrett right there. The original Green Lantern. It's really funny too, because it's almost like it's half superhero community, half retirement home, but not really. And so like Superman and Wonder Woman, they'll come over and they'll be like, "Oh, we just wanted to pay our respects to you guys and your team." It's funny because as I'm watching this, I realize, or as I'm talking, I realize I haven't touched much on the show yet. And I think that that's because it was very much a reconciliation of my feelings for JSA in general. I think that this show is quite good. I don't think that I even stopped, and it's hard for me to watch something all the way through these days because not much catches my attention. But see, this one was only about 84 minutes, not very long, so about an hour and 20, and didn't overstay its welcome. It found a way for us to get into the world, starting with a modern Barry Allen, him dashing through the Speed Force and then getting shot back through time and having to work with these heroes. So now it's like this fun fish out of water. He's discovering, we're discovering. And then for people like me who have read JSA, I'm getting to see some of these characters like pop up. Like I was like, oh, that might be Dr. Manhattan. Oh, look, it's Canary. I want to say one thing. Since this is a spoiler talk, I totally disrespected Canary completely. Black Canary is one of those characters that in the comics, I was like, she's cool. She's cool and everything. Oh, they're hitting me with the ad. My bad, guys. I was like, she's cool. I like the fact that she's part of like the JSA, different perspective. But I thought she was just like a martial artist, like a street fighter. She's talking about like leverage and how to do takedowns and stuff like that. they really showed us with her powers and abilities in this show that her Canary blast is not to be messed with. Like the way that they did it, and keep in mind, this is a whole spoiler talk review. Now I'm getting into it. She literally screamed the flesh off of a monster's bones, and then the bones just fell to the earth. And then you just see the wreckage in front of her because she got emotional because of some of the stuff that happened. But I mean, that's what good comic book writing is that they kind of show you the value of the characters. You make the characters interesting by doing interesting things with their abilities, interesting things with their powers, giving them fun things to say, having them make interesting mistakes that we could see ourselves making. That's how we make them relatable. And we idealize them by giving them a fun way to elevate our thinking around, this is a cool way to utilize this cool power. Because they're power fantasies in a lot of ways. And we're like, man, if I had that power, this is what I would do. Oh, see, look, that's how I would do it too. It's fun. So yeah, I totally was disrespecting her character prior to this, but not anymore. I also wanted to give a shout out to this Wonder Woman. Never been a huge Wonder Woman fan I don't really know. I just never really liked her costume. I'm pretty aesthetically, that's part of who I am. The aesthetics of the character really mattered to me. And I've never really liked Wonder Woman's costume. I always found it to be a bit corny. She's wearing like a weird cutoff of the flag. It's impractical. I've just never really, really liked it. And I never even, for those who liked it for like the sex appeal, I never even found the costume to be relatively sexy at all. It just feels awkward to me. She's wearing like stars for earrings. It's too on the nose. Like, I don't know. Not a fan. Never been a fan of the derivatives of her costumes. If you're reading My Hero Academia, you know what I'm talking about. And in the comics, she does all this like kind of like boasting, but I never felt the power the way I did in this show. Man. When I say that I did a complete 180 on her character and her abilities and her strength in this show and in this movie, more so than I did in Wonder Woman's current movies, 1984, which, is kind of getting a mixed bag reviews, or the original Wonder Woman, which a lot of people love. I liked the character aspect of the original Wonder Woman movie, but I never really liked the combat or the fighting because it just didn't feel like it had that impact. This does. This entire show has some of the best fights in the DC sphere. And at first I was like, I don't know, the animation feels a little bit like it's missing frames, so it's not as fluid as it could be. But they knew how to really utilize the impact of the powers, knowing when to slow down so that you can really feel the tension, knowing how to really kind of speed up, cut back so you feel the impact of her blows instead of just watching her wind up. You see the results. You see how other people are affected. And she goes to town on those Nazis. She goes off. I mean, great animation. Really is making me like and respect her character even more as somebody who just wasn't into that Wonder Woman as a character in general. But now I'm loving what they did with her. On top of that, I like what they did with Steve too. This has always been a weird thing for me, of the fighter pilot whom is kind of like showing off to these like godlike figures, but like he's in there just because he's just like, I got guts and I never give up and I just keep trying. And he does in ways in this film that make me go, okay, that is how you do it. He's not just there because he's like Chris Pine, and Chris Pine is just cool and charismatic. So it's like, yeah, I believe him because he's Chris Pine. They did it via the character. Like when he takes, they get into this fight with Aquaman, which I really want to talk about because it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And let me see if I jump back to the site, if it'll let me just jump to Aquaman, if he's on here somewhere. Here we go. So Aquaman is not a pushover in this series. Is it gonna let me like actually look at the image? Yay! There we go. All right, so check it out. Aquaman. I still hate that costume. It is the ugliest costume. Doesn't look good underwater. They tried to give it this underwater effect, so it looks like, oh look, we're underwater, so it's like kind of fuzzy. I think it is the worst costume. But seeing him and his powers in action, I feel the weight of the Aquaman powers. You think he can just talk to fish? They really showed you his strength, his ferocity, what could actually happen with the trident. Great use of the character. Some of the best action I've seen from Aquaman. Every time it's always like Aquaman shows up when they happen to be fighting someone who wants to hide out in a big, in the ocean or something stupid. And he's like, well, I'll send my giant wave. And you're just like, yo, that's fine. But he doesn't need to do that. He's like Namor. Namor lives under Namor the Submariner from Marvel, the first mutant in history, so forth and so on. Aquaman lives under the ocean. Thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of pressure at the bottom of the sea. So it's like in Dragon Ball Z when they're training in 100 times Earth gravity, Aquaman lives in that. So when he came out and he started really kind of like going to town on these heroes, I was like, oh yeah, that right there is 100% how it would be. So when Steve basically drove a car, jumped it so it would fly at Aquaman, flew out, did a roll, and the car smashes into Aquaman, knocking him across the building. That is the only way he probably could have done any damage to a superhero. So that is the only option. And him being that pilot, that driver, that makes sense. It is a smart use of his abilities, which is his in the moment combat strategy. And I think that right there is 100% why the writing is so freaking sharp. It's so snappy. It's so well done. And the dialogue is good. I don't feel like it's forced. I think the dialogue in Injustice was not that good. I think it was okay. I'm just looking for the writers. Jeremy Adams and Megan Fitzmartin. Well done. It's really great writing on this series. It feels really tight, really well contained. And yeah, like I like seeing some of these characters. So like, you have Jay Garrett, the Flash, as a young man. You have Hawkman. They got into his story. Man, I was not expecting to actually feel the weight of some of the actions. So, I'm not saying spoilers anymore, but so how both Steve dies and Hawkman dies in this. Steve's death felt impactful. It felt real. It felt believable. Hawkman's death felt a little bit forced, because he's flying through the air. He has super strength. And I think he just kind of fell, or I'm not really sure why that means he died. And it makes his powers seem a little bit less than they probably are, but I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. But I like the catalyst that sent Dinah off to do her Canary burst. I also want to point out that seeing the Flash, Jay Garrett, actually getting in a battle with a creature who is around the same speed as him, the way that they shot the crab kind of scuttling across and him dashing across, I really felt the speed. I really felt it. And that's part of the problem is a lot of times they only focus on one aspect in the movies just because of budgetary reasons. So having a character feel really fast at any speed that you show it, they either go super fast where they zip in, zip out, or they show him going in slow motion and him just walking normally while everyone else is trying to punch him and stuff. What they did with him is they had two characters of equal speed and the world just kind of zips by them. but we kind of see them running almost like normal pace. They felt fast, but didn't look too fast. It was so well executed. I think that it was one of the better speed scenes I've really seen. Really smart stuff. I also want to give a shout out to Our Man in the back with the yellow hoodie. I love the human Our Man, especially when they did the redesign for the JSA, when they kind of came back around 2008 or 9, and they brought in the very kind of like high class, I don't know, like really nice looking art when they were trying to reform the JSA. And so you have Mr. Terrific and the guy who dresses like a galaxy. I have his issue somewhere. Our Man's powers give me more anxiety than any other superhero ever. He has the ability to have super strength for 1 hour at a time, and I think he can do it once a day. So for 23 hours out of the day, he's a normal person. 1 hour out of the day, he is one of the strongest human beings ever, fighting with gods. He has a countdown like you wouldn't believe. So if he is fighting anybody of any depth, he hits go and he has a timer and he has to fight now. And if he doesn't win, he will die. So every time I think about Our Man and his powers, I'm just like, oh, my anxiety is going crazy. So that is just immediate conflict, immediate tension. I can't look away. He may run out of time. It's built into the character, and it's such a great human thing where you're just like, God, I have no idea if I could even, what would I do? I would be like trying to say, like, it's even more tense than the Hulk, because the Hulk, at least, you know, if he gets hit, the Hulk will come out. He's not really gonna die. The Hulk's basically making him immortal. Bruce Banner. Our Man is not immortal. He's a normal guy. So like, what do? Do you just like study combat like crazy just in case? That would make me so paranoid. I would be any Martian, because if I'm fighting with the Justice League, anything's gonna happen. Any combat training, I don't know. I just think that power it's just very wild to me. And it's one of those ones where it makes me so tense. I might be able to like do something fun with that character if I was going to do like a fan writing or something. I would put him in the worst situations ever, like where it's just like he would be finishing up a fight and he'd have 10 minutes left. And as he's finishing up the fight, like another thing is happening across the road or across the street where he thinks he can finish the fight in 5 minutes, but it's going to take him 6 minutes to get there. So what does he do? How does he get there? So that he can get there while he's still strong with enough time to finish it. That would be crazy. He would lose all the time. In my stories, he would get beat up. And then I would be wondering like, okay, so that if he's super strong, does he then have the healing ability of the super strength? So I'd have him like try to operate normally and then use his 1 hour to just naturally recoup. I don't know his limitations or what can or can't be done, but there's so much fun stuff that you can do with him as a character. So I think this is a really, really good animated movie. It's not that long. It's fun, and it introduces you to some characters who you may not know because the writing is good and popular for comic book fans. It's like the Legion of Superheroes, which I think was Jeff Johns. He made them too. I love those guys where they have like a Brainiac on their team. It's the year like 3000 something. It's just they're far in the future. Superheroes are like young and they're like the Justice. Imagine if the Justice Society meshed with the X-Men, or the Justice League meshed with the X-Men, and you have that fun Justice League constant adventure, but then you have a group of very young superheroes trying to make do, but their powers are very extreme. I don't know. It's a fun read too. These give you a different look on what you can do with the superhero genre, and they're almost so literal that translating them to the big screen or the small screen, I don't know if it would work. I'm not sure, but I love the attempt. So thanks again for watching Spoiler Talk with Alex Wilder. Lot more shows coming your way. I got really, really hyped when I saw this film. So I went a little bit long in this discussion. I hope you guys had fun. I had fun talking about it. Put in the comments any other shows that kind of fit the genre, stuff that you're interested in. But also, have you seen Justice Society of America? Have you read any of the comments? And if so, who is your favorite character? I'll respond to everybody below. Thank you so much for watching. I am out. Oh, like, subscribe.